There is nothing more satisfying than seeing your favorite character's growth be validated by the cast around them. The anime community loves to have these talent versus hard work debates as if either side invalidates the efforts put in, but characters who fall into the underdog category tend to avoid that issue altogether. Those who truly start at the bottom and pry their way to victory tend to hit different, and within World Trigger, we are all no stranger to the rising of Osamu Mikumo. While his biggest weapons have never been Triana Mount or combat prowess, his wits and critical leadership within Tamakoma 2 make him a force to be reckoned with. The Rank Wars is proof of his dedication to reach the away mission, and throughout the entire season, we saw many opinions of him gradually change for the better. Notably in people like Ninomiya, who not only acknowledged Mikumo's presence as a threat, but ended up suffering defeat by him as well. His wits and outplays is why he is one of my top 3 main characters, and even now in the midst of the away mission examination portion of the story, he is still putting his analytical skills to use. Yet the results he has achieved can be argued to be unprecedented, especially with Tamakoma 2 being a new squad. It definitely got some attention during the Rank Wars, and in more recent events, it also gained the attention of the combat leader of Kotori's squad, Rokuro Wakamura. Another 4 eyes in the organization, but one that is lacking much more in all areas across the board. Except Trion, I guess, but even then, he isn't making much use of it. The latest chapters of World Trigger have brought these two characters to a point of comparison. Requesting advice from Hyuse, he is out to learn what exactly does Mikumo have that he doesn't. It's not a bad question, as reflecting among your peers can spark on new growth, but the way Ashihara breaks down the thought process through Hyuse's logic is some of his most brilliant writing yet. We're gonna take this chapter by chapter, starting with 245. Firstly, Rokuro believes that Mikumo and him share the same position of being hardworking people. Yet even so, the results that Mikumo achieved are ones that he himself cannot see being brought to fruition. Examples such as if Mikumo were to lead Kotori's squad, he'd be able to bring them up higher, though the same cannot be said for Tamakoma if Wakamura were to lead it. Thus pivoting the conversation to start at the basics and simply figure out what exactly has Wakamura done and gained in the same amount of time that Mikumo has been growing. The answer being that he's worked with Inukai, gaining shooter skills and knowledge from those of high B rank, which isn't bad given how Mikumo learned the fundamentals from Kurasuma and wires from Kitora. Having a teacher isn't bad, but in this same point, Hyuse is able to identify the difference between the two. At the end of the day, all of Inukai's training was to get Rokuro to think for himself, or as the manga phrased it, cultivate his own flower from scratch. It's something that Wakamura wasn't able to pick up on, but for Mikumo, that's always been his bread and butter. Even with the wires, Kitora gave him the very basics and left the future of Tamakoma 2 up to its leadership in the implementation of wires to Mikumo's own devices. Wakamura, on the other hand, is way too rigid. He lacks innovation or his own route to really bring out the full potential of his squad. It's a brutal realization, but one that he doesn't shy away from, taking us into chapter 246 with Hyuse going a bit further down the pipeline. Chapter 246 begins focusing on one key word, and that's capability. When we understand what a character is capable of, we can already see the result of a situation a mile away before it even happens. Look at Deku, for example. The first 3 seasons of MHA would never make you think that he had feats that would scale to be island level destruction. Yet looking at seasons 4 through 7, after understanding what his quirks are capable of, it makes sense when we see some of the most insane things to come from him, especially coming off the recent movie. Capability is all about using everything in your arsenal and bringing the results needed regardless of whatever odds are stacked against you. Also, did anybody else feel a little nostalgic seeing After Crater drawn again after so many years? Excuses are not accepted when it comes to results, which then leads to a bigger question: how exactly does Mikumo produce better results, especially when the odds like a low Trion level is stacked against him? This leading to the second important term that I identify to play a part in these chapters, and that's urgency. There are personal stakes involved for everyone in the squad to reach the away mission. For Chika and Mikumo, it's to find close people on the other side. For Kuga, it's Replica, and for Hyuse, it's getting back home to protect his lord. Failure of any sort is not an option, and that wiggle room for it only got even smaller once they lost back in round 4. On top of their own personal goals, there is also a deadline for the Rank Wars season to conclude. Taking in all these factors, there is a constant looming pressure on Tamakoma 2's success, and it cannot be ignored. When somebody respects that pressure, it only motivates them to give it everything they have to reach the finish line, and that hunger, that sense of urgency is what Wakamura lacked. As elaborated upon by Hiyus, when one doesn't feel that urgency to reach a deadline, you may just get comfy and never move backwards, but at the same time not move forward either. You postpone your feelings to grow through the use of excuses, all of which Mikumo did not have the luxury to have ever since after Crater invaded. Even then, just observing the competition, Mikumo recognized early on that his route would be a thorny one. There is no way that he would be able to miraculously close the skill gap, the Trion gap, and the knowledge gap of all of his peers' capabilities all in one rank war season. It'd be the equivalent of praying for a miracle, and Ashihara's writing is allergic to the thought of it. Every failure, every success will be earned through diligence, and through Mikumo's rigorous path that he cultivated, he yielded abnormal results in comparison that most agents wouldn't be able to do. Again, this is why I love this main character, because I can relate to the idea of respecting urgency. Even with my content, there is a reason why I don't do long breaks, because I know consistency is valuable as much as me choosing to learn more on my free time is. At the end of the day, Mikumo is someone Wakamura cannot copy. It's exactly what Inukai was trying to instill within him. To emulate somebody isn't to grow internally, but rather to replicate externally, which would notably be something we could see in the rank wars. This realization, though clicking with Wakamura, still isn't giving him the nudge as to what direction he should take. The end of this chapter, however, is by far one of the most ambitious and bold ideas to bring out, with you saying that if you really want to get somewhere, then you must first step away from the foundation you have right now and leave Kotori's squad. We've seen squad members leave squads before, but this is a monumental change that could alter the future of Kotori's squad for the better, and moving into chapter 247, we get one of the coolest breakdowns this series has ever had. Brutal honesty is sometimes said to be the best medicine, and Hiyus is the perfect person to deliver it. The diagram he used to identify placements introduced the idea that where Wakamura's skill range lies in reality is in C rank. The reason behind it is because Wakamura is unable to not only lead himself but his teammates in battle, but to really put attack on the board, Kotori herself is way too competent. Now this right here is why I sometimes say that World Trigger feels like an esports, because this part with Kotori just reminded me of what it means to get carried. When we look at competitive games, there is a reason why there are things like elo and placement matches in order to rightfully place people where they belong. However, that doesn't change the fact that people can still be carried by a better player in their matches, and as to Wakamura being a copper player, Kotori is a platinum player. Her skill set and prodigy-like capabilities could probably keep up with Kuga in its own unique way under the right leadership, which is severely lacking in the squad. That of which leading to another conclusion that Wakamura was never given the chance to really learn the fundamentals of team battles because Kotori put the squad in such a high position. He has a massive learning gap that he has been unable to close because he was propelled faster than he was ready to be. This right here is the ultimate fear that Wakamura has had to confront face to face. He is weaker than he could have ever imagined, and naturally nobody would want to hear this conclusion, but it's a tough pill that he has to swallow. Now this analysis, while thorough and true, doesn't mean it'll guarantee anything. Major adjustments in question as they may be, deep down Wakamura contemplates that he may not even have had that dog in him in the first place, that perhaps he will never be really able to take that first step, in which Hiyus replies to simply subdivide. Break down every little thing you know you need to work on in order to take just that first step. For if he is able to do that, then no matter how long it takes, eventually he will be able to take major steps on the accord of his own raw effort. Even the most skilled people may struggle with the simplest things, and if Wakamura can learn the fundamentals he was previously unable to do, then he will someday gain the confidence needed to lead. These few chapters further prove why Mikumo is worthy to not only lead, but how his character can be inspiring to others, and it's this stuff right here that should make you excited for the future of the series. Wakamura may end up being somebody that becomes incredible someday, and who knows what his future may be. Whether he stays in Kotori's squad or not, he has the potential to grow and even rival Mikumo someday, and I love the way Ashihara approaches healthy growth. This entire exam arc, in my opinion, is a massive setup for the second half of the story beyond the away mission. From the Trion on units to the possibility of a second rank wars, and even the personal futures of certain agents, there is a lot of potential here. If there is one thing Ashihara is making sure to do, it's make sure nobody can ever say that we didn't see this coming. These chapters are arguably some of the best chapters in the arc thus far, and hopefully we get some follow-up on these developments not too much longer after the away mission is over. I'm excited to see where Wakamura as a character ends up, because Mikumo could use some competition. One thing for sure though that I do want to live to see is undoubtedly a second season of the Rank Wars. With that, ladies and gentlemen, is gonna bring me to the end of this video. As always, thank you very much for watching, and by all means, make sure to leave all your thoughts about these recent World Trigger chapters in the comments section down below. Be well out there until we meet again in the next video.